money was literally about to go out the door. And then Republican elected officials and special interests stepped in. They said, no, no. Literally snatching from the hands of millions of Americans thousands of dollars in student debt relief that was about to change their lives.
Let's bring in our panel. Leslie Marshall, Democratic strategist, Olivia Beavers, congressional reporter for Politico, and Washington Post columnist Mark Thiessen. Great to have you all here on such a momentous legal day. We are going to pick your brains. Olivia, I want to start with you because also in his remarks today, the president talked about the fact that Republicans could not stand the middle class getting help. I mean, he really went after them and talked about how terrible they are on this issue. But if he needs them legislatively to get anything done on this front, I don't know that they're going to want to work with him after that.
No, but I mean, I think you're starting to see those dividing lines long before the courts with, you know, Republicans point out that Biden came in and they said he wanted to be a bipartisan president. And then they talk about how he's always going out attacking the MAGA Republicans and the extremists. And that's something that they're countering, saying, is he really coming to the table or only because he was forced because the House flipped and now there's a divided government? So that's something that they've been pushing back on, is Biden's record of being this bipartisan man. They're arguing it's not.
And bottom line, what the court said on that on the student loans issue is that essentially the Secretary of Education could not make this sweeping move to get rid of $430 billion in debt. It went beyond his statutory powers. Here is how Congressman Ralph Norman is responding. He says you cannot cancel, he says in quotes, student loans any more than you can cancel a car payment or credit card debt. The money has to come from somewhere. Proponents of this literally wanted student loan debt transferred to other people. It's obnoxious. Leslie?
Well, it was a campaign promise which got a lot of young Americans to vote for Joe Biden to become president. And, you know, he said he was going to do that, and he did that. But I will tell you, out of all of these rulings, this is the one I'm not surprised went this way. And because of that, because I, you know, have heard legal arguments on both sides, and there is that area of overlap, which is, you know, too much authority, and does that one individual in education have that much authority? Because if they do with this, then there are other places they would as well.
Yeah, and so on the other side of this coin, Senator Bernie Sanders says this: in my view, if right-wing Supreme Court justices want to make public policy, they should quit the Supreme Court and run for political office.
Well, you know who ran for political office? Members of Congress. Those are the people that the president bypassed. I mean, you know, he compares it to the PPP loans. The PPP loans were passed by Congress and signed into law by the president. He just did this by executive fiat. You cannot spend, under our Constitution, $500 billion taxpayer dollars without getting Congress to authorize it. It's just the way it works. But I'll tell you something, Shannon. I think they're secretly happy with the Supreme Court decision, and I'll tell you why. The biggest problem they have going into the 2024 election is inflation. People are unhappy with the economy. He's got 34% approval on the economy. People think we're paying too much. This would have been inflationary. It was Jason Furman, former Obama economic advisor, who said pouring $500 billion of gasoline onto the inflationary fire, which is already burning, is reckless. This would have been like another COVID relief bill, $500 billion poured into the economy that would settle inflation off even further. So it's a silver lining to the decision. We're going to have less inflation because of it.
And Olivia, it gives the president talking points for the re-election campaign, being out there on the trail, because he can say, look, I fought for you. I tried to get this done for you, this crazy MAGA court and all these Republicans, although he was among Democrats who cast doubt on whether or not he could do this. Yes. It's a great talking point for him to say, I fought for you, and it's the court that stopped me from helping you.
100%. And Shannon, you know, he's going to be able to say that. Progressives might think he needs to find a way to go around and find a way to help alleviate student-owned debt. But another thing to watch for that I'm going to be looking out for is, does this motivate voters? After Dobbs, when we saw abortion play a huge role in the midterms, voters turned out in a way that House Republicans that I was talking to did not expect. And they did an autopsy report, found it was a much bigger issue. I'm not sure that we're going to see this being as big of an issue as abortion, but do these motivate younger voters or people of color, or the other one, LGBTQ voters? And if so, how much?
Yeah, so let's talk about that free speech case, which also encompasses a lot of groups and folks that are very interested in this. This was the web designer out of Colorado who said, I have clients who are LGBTQ. I'm happy to work with them, but for custom designs for something like a same-sex wedding, which is against my own personal religious beliefs, I don't feel like I should have to do it. The court sided with her 6-3. Justice Gorsuch, writing for the majority, says this: tolerance, not coercion, is our nation's answer. The First Amendment envisions the United States as a rich and complex place where all persons are free to think and speak as they wish, not as the government demands. Leslie.
I'm going to answer that, but I want to say a tsunami is coming. This is going to motivate LGBTQ, people of color, and youth voters. Read Gallup. I'll text it to you later. There's more confidence in the economy than 2022 right now, so I think Joe Biden is going to be okay when it comes to Biden economics. With regard to this decision, here is my problem and a lot of people, not just on my side of the aisle, but with regard to this, it's a slippery slope. First Amendment is my favorite in the Constitution. I think most people, you want those freedoms, that speech.
First one?
Yeah. Yes. And religion. But you don't need to read further for some people. But at the same time, it is a slippery slope. Let me just give one tiny example, okay? So then we're saying, if you are, sorry, I'm going to use some people in my family, Orthodox Jews or very strict Muslims, who say, I can't do business with you, or I can't give you service if your face isn't covered with a beard as a man, if your head isn't covered, or as a woman, if you're not covered, either with a scarf or with a wig. You see what I'm saying? It becomes a very slippery slope because we have numerous religions, we have numerous beliefs in this country. So to me, it opens the door to more discrimination at a time that we certainly don't need more division and discrimination in our nation.
Well, what the court says, it's not about the messenger or the person, it's about the message. And Mark, is that distinction going to be lost on some people? Because this is supposed to be for people who are claiming they have an artistic job, that they are doing custom events and they don't want to do them to endorse specific messages, but it's not about the person.
We don't have compelled speech in this country. It's just it's that simple. You can't compel somebody to speak something that they don't believe. It's a fundamental to who we are as Americans. So you can agree or disagree with the speech, but also one of the most important things about the First Amendment, why it's the First Amendment and why it's our favorite one, is because it protects speech that's unpopular and it protects speech that we might disagree with. And the idea, what I don't understand is, can't they find a web designer or a cake baker or somebody who agrees with them, who's willing to make the cake? Of course they can. This movement is going out to try and pick fights and force people to do things that they don't want to do or that are against their conscience to prove a point. And I find that deeply offensive.
I find deeply offensive. I didn't get to your winners and losers because I mismanaged this panel. Olivia, I'm going to let you quickly tell us your two because that's all the time we have left.
Okay, my loser is Francis Juarez, who was on Hugh Hewitt's show. He's a mayor from Florida, and he did not know what Uyghurs were. It was not that he didn't know what Uyghurs were. It was actually how he tried to recover, and he blamed Hugh Hewitt, saying that it was his pronunciation that tripped him up. And my winner is Donald Trump. I think will be able to point to these recent Supreme Court rulings and say, I got 3 conservative justices onto the court. You should be voting for me. I can do it again.
Okay, I owe you guys winners and losers. We'll talk about them during the break. Okay.